G'day everyone and welcome to another top 5 album review. This time I'm going to look at the top 5 Australian albums, which I said I was going to do in my last video. Just check my channel out, subscribe, every little bit helps. I've done UK Best 5, I've done the US Top 5, and now it's time for my home country in Australia to do the top 5. So without further ado, get straight into it. Going to be a lot of debate on this one, but at number 5, this particular album here is Men at Work, Cargo. Now, how could you not have Men at Work in your top 5? Iconic Australian band, probably one of the most successful Australian bands ever to come out of Australia and hit the world stage and become one of the most popular bands in the world, with one of the most iconic songs ever as an Australian anthem, which I think you all know what that one is. But now some great tracks on here, and I've chosen this one because it's probably not the one that everybody would choose, and not sort of some of their iconic songs on this particular album, but every track an absolute banger. Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive and Settle Down My Boy, all that kind of, there's some great tracks on this album. So do yourself a favour if you're watching from US or UK or any other country, some of this great Australian music is stuff that you've just got to listen to and put on the turntable. Men at Work, Cargo, great iconic Australian band, comes in at number 5. Number 4, also you cannot have a top 5 without having this album in here, and of course Crowded House comes in at my number 5. Now, this album, when it came out, it was just there's song after song in this album that was just, so iconic, so huge when it first hit the Australian market. Those that don't know Crowded House, obviously, Neil Finn, coming from Split Enz, created and formed this three-piece band, and it became bigger than Split Enz in my opinion. And this album, stuff like Mean to Me, Don't Dream It's Over, what a song, Can't Carry On, That's What I Call Love, just every single song on this album is absolutely brilliant. So Crowded House gets my number 4 spot, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me on that. Please comment below and tell me thoughts, and don't feel afraid to give me your top 5. Coming at number 3, and there's probably a lot of albums here that people will be watching to go, oh, how could that be number 3, or what's that doing in there? But these are kind of albums that resonated with me through my upbringing, through my main period of playing in bands and whatnot around my hometown in Hobart, with the guys that I used to play with. And these are the albums that really just jumped out at me and just thought, oh hell, this is some great stuff. Number 3, Boom Crash Opera with these, what's the album called? These here are Crazy Times. These here are Crazy Times, the Boom Crash Opera album. I think it was possibly their debut album. I'm not actually 100% sure, but I think it was their debut album. But the reason this comes in at number 3, it was just an absolute banger. It's a powerhouse of an album. There's just so many great songs on here that were very, very powerful in terms of that great Australian sounding band. And when I say it's a great Australian sounding band, Aussie bands do have a real feel about them. They have a particular feel. You know what country we're coming from when we're talking about Australia. I was playing in kind of a lot of pub bands in the kind of 80s, late 80s and early 90s, and we had a lot of this. We had a lot of Boom Crash Opera in our set list, and it always went down a treat because, you know, they're just songs that push along, that have power, that have feeling, that have everything to it. So I loved this album when it first came out. Yeah, Onion Skin and Get Out of the House were two songs, iconic Australian songs that people, especially Aussie people, would know and resonate with. So that gets my number 3 spot. My number 2 spot coming up, people are going to probably say this is a pretty weird choice for number 2. Not for me, it isn't, because I think this band is very underrated. I think they only ever put out 2 albums, to be honest. The first one went off completely, but the second album I loved, and it was a band called Wah Wah Nee. Now, everyone's going to say, what the hell is that doing in the top 5 iconic Australian albums? And, you know, like, I can understand why you would be saying that. But this band is a very underrated band. Their first debut album was massive, you know. It became a hit kind of all over the world, really, and it made them. But they kind of put out this second album and then went away as soon as they came. But this album's got. Prince is a huge influence in my music, and I love him very much. And Prince obviously had a huge influence over this band. It was great to hear an Aussie band doing that kind of stuff, you know. The singer in this band, oh my god, I'm having a mental blank, but very, very underrated. Help me out here in the comments. Geez, that's ridiculous that I don't know. Very underrated player. He ended up playing, and he's not with us anymore. He sadly passed away. But yeah, he ended up playing piano on kind of midday TV shows and things like that. So that's kind of where he ended up. But this album is such a great album. I do really would like to push to all the people that are watching this to give this a bit of a go. Look it up, have a listen to it. You won't be disappointed. There are some great songs on here. Giving Everything, So Good. There's the last song on this album, which is kind of real good, great jazz feel to it, is called Blush. And I would highly recommend that you give this a listen. So Wah Wah Nee comes in at my number 2 spot. Geez, I'll need to. How could I not remember the lead singer's name in this album? God, come on, help me out here. I can't even read because I'm going blind. But anyway, I'm sure I will come back to you on that. Wah Wah Nee, Blush, number 1 spot. I won't hold you on that. And this is, of course, this is a no-brainer. I reckon in Australia, this would have to be the number 1 album for everybody. Or then, sorry, not the number 1 album, but the number 1 band. And you could probably put, I could have did my top 5 and had every single one of their albums in the top 5. Personally, that's what my top 5 would have been, but I want it to be even and fair across the board to other bands. But Midnight Oil has to come in at number 1 for any Australian follower of music. I love that album, Diesel and Dust, but it's not in my top 5. Well, not my number 5. No, not my number 1 album for them. And of course, Red Sails in the Sunset, another fantastic album. Could have been number 1 quite easily. I've settled with Place Without a Postcard as my top Midnight Oil album. What can you look, honestly, what can you say about Midnight Oil? They I remember seeing them in the Kingston Town Hall for one of my first ever gigs that I'd ever been to in Hobart, and it was a small little kind of 2,000-3,000 per people venue at kind of this basketball stadium. I was right in front, first gig, first song came on, I think it just blew my head off in terms of the sound and the noise that reverberated through that basketball centre. It was absolutely incredible. So the number one album, Midnight Oil, Place Without a Postcard, song after song after song on this album. Just go and listen to it. But they're also one of the biggest export band or a band in Australia that made it worldwide and well known sort of in that sort of 80s, 90s period. They're absolutely massive. There are a number of albums that were omitted that could have been in the top 5 with massive bands, AC/DC being the most obvious band. I don't know, of course any one of their albums could be in a top 5. This is so difficult to choose. It is opinion based, and the reason I picked a top 5 such as this, they're albums that kind of were really what I grew up with and that resonated and were iconic to me personally. So I could imagine there are hundreds of great Australian albums. You could throw Skyhooks in there. You could throw Daryl Braithwaite. There's so many great Australian artists and bands that could be in that top 5. But there's some pretty strong top 5 albums in there that I've given you today. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching again, and I know what I'll do in the top 5 next. Bit of a guitar player. I might do my top 5 favourite guitar player albums of all time. Let's do that one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and catch you all again soon. Bye for now.